Consent is sexy, but a checklist or a legal contract isn't. How do we navigate consent without ruining the moment, sacrificing excitement, mystery, and spontaneity? You can learn sexy communication skills, including consent, that will turn an average fuck into a super fuck. If you want to be a Bedi Sex Master, then learn sexy talk skills you must and can. This week on the Blue Ball Report. Welcome to the Blue Ball Report. I'm your host, Digger, queer daddy and sex and relationship coach. And I'm Superfuck, super sex hero sent to Earth aboard an intergalactic ejaculate from the planet Gonad to liberate libidos and thwart coitus lame ass. We've got some fan mail for you today, Superfuck. A really great question that prompted today's episode. If you have fan mail or questions or need advice from Puddles, Digger, or Superfuck, add them to the comments below or submit them at contact.blueballreport.com. We can't respond to every message, but we may include it in a future episode. Before we continue, I want to thank our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by our Teespring store, Blue Ball Apparel, featuring limited edition designs that can change at any time. So check them out today. Your purchase supports our sex-positive mission to liberate libidos and thwart coitus lamus. Add your email address for my weekly newsletter and get 10% off. See links in the description. Yeah, so back to what this message was. Dear Superfuck, I'm disgusted by the prevalence of sexual violence and violation in our culture, and consent is important to me. But I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I'm not exactly sure how to navigate consent without it seeming awkward and even ruining the moment. I'm curious how it's done on your sexually enlightened planet. What advice do you have? Signed, Horny and Speechless in Vegas. But before we answer that question, Superfuck, I have a couple of exciting announcements. First, for a limited time, I'm offering free sex and relationship coaching sessions via Zoom. And second, I want to invite you to the first birthday celebration of the Blue Ball Report on Saturday, February 6th at 10 a.m. PST. For more details about both of these great freebies, please watch last week's episode linked here and in the video description. We're hosting a very unique birthday event to learn, meet, mingle, ecstatic dance, and build sex-positive community. A Saturday morning Zoom get-together to watch an inspiring talk on emotional education and break out into small groups to learn and share meaningful conversation with Blue Ball fans like you. After the talk, stick around to socialize more by exploring the various Zoom breakout rooms for small group conversations or join the ecstatic dance room. I hope you'll join us. See the description for details and links. Now back to a horny and speechless question, Superfuck. Interesting. There are several layers to this question. First of all, I'm glad you're disgusted by the prevalence of sexual violation on the Blue Ball. My home planet, Gonad, wasn't always sexually enlightened. In fact, a long time ago, it was quite as blue as your balls. But us gametes learned from it, changed things, and now sexual assault and violation are quite rare. So it can be improved if that gives you hope. And that's what Superfuck is all about. Hey Superfuck, I think we'd all love to hear how gametes turn Gonad into a sexually enlightened planet. How about we do that next week? Perfect. I bet viewers might have some idea how we could evolve this planet towards sexual enlightenment. I'd love to hear what you think. Please add your ideas in the comments below. But back to the main question, and there's no need to be embarrassed because many blue ballers have the same question and I'm not really sure why. Well, we talk consent and it's important, but I don't see consent conversations modeled anywhere. From education, books, TV, movies, porn, none of it. Instead of seeing healthy consent skills, we see violations all the time, even seemingly innocent ones. The cliche of the man who yawns to put his arm around the girl in the movie theater without asking. Or the first kiss of a couple where one takes a leap of faith in the tension of not knowing whether it's welcome or not and starts sucking face without asking. And the thing is, in these romantic stories, such unspoken advances are welcome. And then they get married and live happily ever after. Or in the comedies, they are rejected in an over-the-top, ridiculous, hilarious, and humiliating way where we all laugh at the victim's embarrassment. No one ever just pushes back and says, hey, ask first, or consent is sexy. These stories just validate a norm that true romance starts with sexual violation that is rewarded with love. Either that, or it will instead lead to a painful public humiliation. And this story just instills a fear of rejection so hard It keeps a lot of people from taking any first step in an erotic pursuit, which means a lot of lost opportunities. Well, no wonder people don't know how to navigate consent on the blue ball. Ridiculous! And please, only dick and lick a puss after obtaining consent. Cling! I feel like we should be pressing our educators and scriptwriters to show people the way and reject these stories that glamorize sexual violation. I'm glad to see consent trending and conversations starting around this topic, but some of the more militant ideas seem kind of sex negative, leading to more fear, shame, and less intimacy. I've even seen an app for consent. The social sexual skills of a society have hit rock bottom when it needs an app to navigate a rather simple conversation. But to make consent sexy, first I'm going to assume you know the very basic concepts of consent, which are described in the analogy of consent to a cup of tea. I'll put a link here and then in the description. That material is basic about the ethics for engaging physically or sexually with someone, but today we're going to build on that by adding the language and the communication. You see, if someone says yes to making out, it doesn't mean they necessarily want to fuck. They may want to neck and make out, but they might not even want your hands in their pants. With an infinite sexual menu of options, consent is more complicated than just yes to everything or no to everything. So how do you simplify or streamline that superfuck to keep it consensual but sexy? See, when I make an advance, I prefer clear, sexy language like, dude, I want to taste that dick, may I? We've decided to include Homowork prompts in this episode. There'll be several of them, and they'll help you improve your communication skills to help you become a Bedi Sex Master. These Homowork questions will be summarized in the video description. And the first Homowork question is, how can you ask for what you want in a sexy way? List some things you like in sex and try on different ways of asking for them by writing them and rehearsing them all sorts of ways until you find some that feel natural and hot to you. If you want to become a Bedi Sex Master, then pay attention to the following Homowork instructions that will only be explained once but apply for every Homowork prompt in the rest of this video. These Homowork questions can help you find what sexy words feel natural and hot to you so you can use it in real life. Maybe you want to try some of the lines you've heard in movies, or maybe you want to customize them to your own unique style. Start by brainstorming. Turn off your inner critic or editor and just say yes to every idea that comes to mind and jot them down. Even awful ideas can lead to great ideas. Maybe leave that paper somewhere where your mom can find it. Then you'll want to try out these ideas by speaking them aloud. This is best done while you're masturbating and or imagining yourself in a sexy situation. Put yourself in a sexy headspace. If being verbal is new to you, then it's likely that everything you say will feel silly and awkward, and that's normal because it's a new thing. That's okay. Don't judge, Judy. Just play. Try things out. It takes a little practice. Try them out several times in several ways or different tones, different facial expressions. Some phrases may sound like a cheesy porn star from your own mouth at first, but then with practice they might feel sexy. Or maybe you need to modify them a little bit or edit them to make some changes so that they feel natural for you. And you're doing this not to remember lines verbatim, but just to get used to communicating verbally. The next step, of course, is trying them out with a partner. The most important element that determines if verbal is sexy or not is the confidence and the command of the speaker. And this comes after practice that can involve some fumbles, so be gentle for yourself. And surprisingly, you can even make a really ridiculous statement sound kind of hot. If you watch our previous video on talking dirty, you'll see Superfuck say some absolutely ridiculous things that sound kind of sexy. Oh yeah, come sit on daddy's muff. We'll link to that episode here as well and in the description. Being a Bedi Sex Master is knowing that most people are raised to be polite and to accommodate the needs of others, to not hurt anyone's feelings, to be nice. Because of this, rejecting someone's sexual advances or requests can feel the opposite of all that. So saying no can be really hard for some people, especially inexperienced people who haven't learned how to say no. But this is an opportunity for you to share some wisdom. See, if I make a request and there's a pause or anything but a truly enthusiastic yes, I'll turn it into a moment to share the skill of saying no. I'll smile warmly to show my authenticity and say, not now, maybe later, or simply no thank you are all perfectly acceptable answers. Which leads to the next homework. Write and rehearse this phrase or something similar that feels natural for you. Make sure it's sweet and kind and open. You may not get your specific request fulfilled, but you've created trust and safety, which will improve your connection and experience. And we can segue into the next homework question, which is learning to say your no's. No thank you, not right now. I'm impressed, digger. This is part of our credo as a superhero of Eros. To skill share, to empower Eros and others. It's a good job. Well, we have to help each other out. I mean, we have to teach each other because how else are we going to learn it? Guess what, digger? I brought some surprise guests to help us demonstrate. Do you recall my boyfriends Jason and Jack? If you haven't met my hot bottom stud lovers before, I highly encourage you check out the hilarious episode linked here in the description when we met. Say hello, Jason.
Howdy, boys. If I can take Superfuck's fist, I can sure take all your dicks.
He's very eager. And meet Jack. Oh, what, you got a cat in your throat? This one's anally fixated, and this one's orally fixated. If I offer those options for a no, sometimes I get a repeated lackluster yes, no enthusiasm. And of course that will have me curious if they truly mean it, because I only want it if they want it. Let's role play with my boys.
Hey, Jack, I want to suck your dick. That sounds like a lackluster yes to me. I mean, I may be wrong here, but I'm getting a sense from your tone you're not really into it. Or maybe you have some concerns or hesitation. Is something going on?
And this can lead to further conversation. For your next homo work, write and rehearse this phrase or a similar one that feels sweet and kind and open and curious and helps others know you're welcome to saying no and their needs are important.
I sometimes like to remind a lover, I got a big old menu of options we can play, but I get the most pleasure from giving you pleasure. Your boundaries, your no thank yous are important and valuable to me. They help us build a clearly defined play space of pleasure so we can be wild and free. So thank you. And thank you, Superfuck, cause this fist feels so good.
Good point, Jason, my fister sister. For the next homework work, write this or a similar phrase. And rehearse and rewrite until you find something that works naturally for you. So we talked a lot about communication, but let's get to consent. There's a movement called Affirmative Consent, which requires consent to be obtained at every escalation of a sexual encounter. Some would argue that anything less than a, quote, a verbal enthusiastic yes is a violation of consent. But detractors complain that verbal confirmation at every escalation? Does that mean each touch, each kiss? How minute? Many complain that if the consent conversation gets too legalese, that it ruins the organic nature of a sexual encounter. It turns it into a clinical checklist that is a complete turnoff. On the plus side, affirmative consent contends that unconscious or passed out people cannot consent, which makes sense. It also posits that people can be too intoxicated to consent, even with an enthusiastic yes, which makes some sense, although the line of what is too intoxicated or not is rather blurry, and it can allow regretful people to shift responsibility. And after a stiff cocktail, who doesn't like a stiff cock on their tail? Right, boys?
Oh yeah, but nothing beats his fist.
So, Superfuck, how does a super sex hero make consent conversations sexy and hot? Well, sex is adult play, as an analogy. You see, I need to show others how to play with me, and I need to pay attention to learn how others want to play with me, because we all play differently. So a kid might start by asking another kid,
Hey, wanna play?
and then they decide what to play, how they want to play, and by what rules. This can be an ongoing process, and it can be done both non-verbally and verbally.
If you love laughing and learning to empower your eros making love transcendent, then hit the subscribe button for weekly content.
You see, back on Planet Gonad, our sex education includes finding our personal, clear, and authentic communication style that is sexy and effective. Sexy talk and foreplay establishes our consent preferences, if not already yet established. Blue ballers usually skip this part because it seems corny or awkward, but that's a shame because it can be the foreplay foreshadowing that builds excitement. Exactly. Your sexy consent and communication skills can be improved alone or with a partner. It's easy to learn, and with some practice and once you get the hang of it, it's easy and hot. And you can help others learn it too by sharing this episode. But before you begin to learn, first, drop the performance anxiety and stop taking sex so damn seriously. Play with things for a while. Every new skill feels awkward at first when we're learning, but with practice it becomes second nature. For starters, let's talk about the opener, initiating intimacy. To demonstrate, I'll bring back my boys. Sexy. You wanna play? Wanna get naked?
Hey, wanna fuck?
Wanna make out? Wanna rub fronts?
I want you now.
For the next homework, you can try on different ways of initiating intimacy and sex by writing and rehearsing them all sorts of ways until you feel something natural and hot to you. The second question would be, well, what do you want to play? In our foreplay, we might ask, what turns you on, Jason?
What are you into, big boys? What are you up for? What are you down for?
You might then plan all or part of the scene, or decide to plan none of it at all and be entirely spontaneous. Sometimes the answer to this question is better clarified by what you're not into, by asking, you got any limits? Any definite no's for you? Not for these guys. These are great questions for new lovers, and also established lovers whose desires may change from day to day.
What you want today? What's on the menu today? Is that sausage special still available?
For the next homework, create and rehearse various ways of talking about your turn-ons that feel hot to you. The next stage is, how do you want to navigate consent? Some options to ask this question might be,
How do you consent?
or consent and boundaries are important to me. How do you prefer to navigate them? And here are some possible answers. If we prefer affirmative consent, we might say,
Ask me before you take it to the next level.
or just ask me along the way, or but if instead you prefer affirmative boundaries, you might say, I'll let you know if anything goes wrong, just don't tickle me.
You just help yourself, stud. I'll let you know when to slow down or stop.
Or you might just choose to use a safe word, which means stop. Whatever initiate in these cases, just don't move so fast they don't have time to stop you or slow you down. Jason here loves a surprise finger rammed up his butt, but I would only do that to him because he told me ahead of time. So let's talk a little bit about boundaries. These are your personal limits, activities or intensities that you don't want to participate in or you refuse to participate in. Now, your boundaries could be as tight as only the things you love to do, or they could be looser to include everything you love to do and any of your lover's requests that you can tolerate. I hope you can see the tighter your boundaries, the more limited your sexual menu. And the looser your boundaries, the more flexibility and generosity you have with a bigger menu of sexual and partner options. Don't do anything that makes you feel gross or goes against your morals. So, between the affirmative consent and the affirmative boundaries, you might want to navigate with some sort of combination of them. For example, I got my boundaries. Just ask before you go below the belt though. Or a dom might say, what's your safe word, boy? Now here's an opportunity for some homo work. What kind of consent do you prefer? Affirmative consent? Affirmative boundaries? Safe word? A combination of that? Why don't you create, rehearse, and find ways to express your consent style? And also, create and rehearse and find ways you can ask this question and how you can explain the various options, because many lovers will need to learn from you. I'm curious about your opinion. What kind of cultural norm would you like to see for handling consent and boundaries here on the Blue Ball? Add your ideas in the comments below. You know, my home planet wasn't always sexually enlightened. It was just like this sex-negative blue ball once, a long time ago, but we flushed that turd and transformed Gonad into this sexually enlightened utopia it is today. Find out how next week at the same fucking time, same fucking channel. Meanwhile, enjoy more videos about sexual communication linked here and in the video description. Until next time, farewell and...